We're looking at a 24-year-old runner, up way before the sun, just quietly slipping out of his parents' back door for a morning jog. Now, he's got a solid education, he's done a stint in the army, but deep down, he kind of feels like a kid who hasn't really experienced the real world yet. But right there, on this foggy morning, his lungs expanding, this sudden exuberant clarity just absolutely hits him. He has this massive epiphany, and it's one that's going to launch a staggering global adventure.
Right in the middle of that run, Phil Knight realizes something profound. Life is a game, and whoever refuses to play just gets left sitting on the sidelines, and he absolutely does not want to sit it out. This really visceral realization prompts him to dust off an old research paper he wrote back in college at Stanford. The topic? Importing Japanese running shoes to the United States. His mantra going forward becomes incredibly simple. Let everyone else call your idea crazy. Just keep going. Do not stop. Section 1. The crazy idea. This morning epiphany is really the first act of our hero's journey. So in today's explainer, we are pulling directly from Phil Knight's deeply personal memoir, Shoe Dog. We're going to dive in and extract the lifeblood, the absolute essential business DNA, from these pages to understand exactly how this shy, rail-thin kid from sleepy Portland, Oregon, took a completely wild, crazy idea and transformed it into literally one of the most recognizable brands in human history. Section 2. The Japanese connection, which details his cultural awakening. So to actually make this crazy idea happen, Knight needs a supplier. He manages to convince his dad to fund a trip around the globe, and he lands in 1960s Japan. But to secure a supplier over there, he has to navigate a totally stark contrast in business styles. He was heavily warned not to be the loud, pushy American, the gaijin. Instead, he adapted to this cultural practice of indirection. He learned pretty quickly that in Japanese business, negotiations are soft, they're sinewy, and no one ever really gives you a flat no. During his big pitch, he leaned heavily on this concept called K, which is a deep show of respect. And you know what? It worked. He won over a shoe company called Onitsuka. Now, while he's in Japan, Knight gets completely captivated by this concept of kensho. It basically means enlightenment that comes in a flash, just a blinding pop. He actively seeks out this profound connection, spending time exploring the deep, minimalist peace of Japanese Zen gardens. And then he contrasts that pure, quiet serenity with the sheer, screaming bedlam he witnesses over at the Tokyo Stock Exchange. Looking at those frantic traders, he makes a promise to himself. He decides his life and his business absolutely must be about so much more than just chasing a dollar. Over the next 10 years, a really fragile partnership starts to take shape. Back in '62, Knight literally bluffs his way through that first meeting in Kobe, claiming to represent a company called Blue Ribbon Sports. The crazy part? The company didn't even exist yet. Fast forward to 1964, he's receiving his first shipments, and he is out there selling running shoes straight out of the trunk of his Green Valiant at local track meets. We can really see this tension building up over the years, all the way to a massive breaking point in 1972. Section 3. Tinkerers and Innovations. It's time to meet the mad scientist. Back on American soil, Knight realizes pretty fast that he needs help. So he turns to his old track coach at the University of Oregon, the legendary Bill Bowerman. And get this, their initial 50-50 partnership to officially launch Blue Ribbon Sports was funded by just $500. And that money was pulled straight from Mrs. Bowerman's Christmas Club bank account. Talk about humble beginnings, right? But see, Bowerman wasn't just a coach. The guy was an absolute mad scientist when it came to footwear. He realized that American runners were generally heavier than Japanese runners, which meant they needed completely different shoes. His process was just relentless. He'd tear apart the Japanese Tiger shoes, modify them, and basically use his own track stars as human lab mice to test them out. This fiery, intense obsession eventually led him to pour liquid rubber into his wife's household waffle iron. Yes, literally a kitchen waffle iron. And that's how he created an innovative outer sole that completely revolutionized the shoe industry forever. This specific level of dedication is exactly what defines a shoe dog. It's a lifer who is completely, happily consumed by the trade. They obsess over refining that one crucial hinge that joins a human being to the Earth's surface. For Knight and Bowerman, making shoes wasn't just some manufacturing gig. It was a profound, tangible way of connecting with humanity. Section 4, Betrayal and Rebirth. The birth of Nike. Okay, so as Blue Ribbon Sports starts seeing this massive, explosive success, literally selling out of their inventory instantly, it unfortunately attracts exactly the wrong kind of attention from across the Pacific. It's the ultimate nightmare scenario for any business. What do you do when your absolute only supplier tries to destroy you?
An executive from Onitsuka named Katami decides he wants a bigger piece of the pie, so he attempts a hostile takeover of Blue Ribbon. He basically says, "Sell to us or we cut off your shoe supply completely." This creates immense dramatic tension, forcing Knight to scramble. He desperately searches for a lifeline and eventually finds crucial financing through a Japanese trading company called Nisho. And then it's a mad dash to find new factories to create a brand new shoe of his own. That new shoe, as you probably guessed, was called Nike. And its big debut at the 1972 Chicago Sporting Goods Show, well, it was absolutely terrifying. The first batch of Nikes they got from the new factories were deeply flawed. The weather-resistant paint looked terrible, the quality was super spotty, it was a mess. But Knight and his team did something completely radical. They just told the buyers the truth. And because they had spent years building actual trust by shooting straight with these retailers, the buyers placed their orders anyway. As one of Knight's early employees laughed about it afterward, telling the truth? Who knew? Section 5. The Shoe Dog Philosophy. Let's look at the core lessons learned from all of this. The messy split with Onitsuka ultimately leads to this grueling, high-stakes legal battle that tests everything Knight has built. But, spoiler alert, Knight's team ultimately wins the lawsuit, completely freeing them up to build the Nike empire. And eventually, they have to face Knight's biggest, most paralyzing fear, taking the company public. Now, to put the ROI of early belief into perspective, check this out. An $8,000 loan from the parents of an early employee, which was given just to keep this scrappy little company afloat during the hard times, ended up morphing into a $1.6 million payout on the day Nike went public. Unbelievable, right? Looking back at this entire incredible journey, we can really distill a few vital insights. First off, belief is totally irresistible. When you truly, deeply believe in what you're doing, others are going to want a piece of that belief. Second, fail fast. Knight knew going in he might fail, but he wanted to fail quickly so he could apply those hard-earned lessons to the very next venture. And finally, business isn't just about chasing profits. If you improve something, if you actually add value to the lives of strangers, you are actively participating in the grand human drama. Phil Knight started his whole empire with a simple morning run and a crazy idea, completely fueled by this stubborn refusal to just sit on the sidelines. He wanted his life to feel like play, to be truly meaningful. So I've got to ask you, are you just doing the bare minimum right now to survive? Or are you finally ready to embrace the unknown, add real value to the world, and chase down your own crazy idea?